Yo, yo, yo. Hey guys, welcome back to another awesome edition of the Best Practices Show podcast. Our goal here is to bring you great information, great frameworks, great questions so that you can improve your practice and your life. And today we're going to do just that with our Director of Education. And she brings 6 critical questions you have to answer as a dentist to really sharpen your vision. And this is part 1 of a series. We want you to use this, and you'll see how powerful it is when you answer these 6 questions. So please listen up. I hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll see you soon. Hey guys, welcome back to the Best Practices Show podcast. You know the GM here. Our job is to bring the greatest minds, greatest speakers, greatest coaches, greatest teachers anywhere in the world on this great podcast so that you can create a better practice and better life. And I'm going to do just that with the Director of Education. Her name is Miranda Beeson, and she makes our lives better around here. And she's an amazing coach too. And we're going to be talking about the 6 critical questions to sharpen your vision. This is crazy important. I know you've heard a lot about vision. Vision. Well, we're going to dissect it and give you some powerful structures, questions, formats to make it come alive. Miranda, thanks for being on. I always appreciate you.
Hi, Kirk. Thanks so much for having me back. I'm so happy to be here.
You didn't have a choice. You just have to keep coming back again and again and again and again and again. So
I love it. It's fun.
It is so much fun. And so just to let you guys know, because I don't care anymore, you're part of the family listening to the podcast. So Miranda Beeson she's changed our lives in so many ways. And she just crossed the 2-year mark of working with ACT Dental. We are so grateful that we had a chance to talk with her. And she said yes when we offered her the job. So I said thank you. And so obviously that's how the story continues. She has now stepped into this role, not only on the leadership team, but also the Director of Education. So that, she taught me that phrase too, so that you guys as listeners can have a great experience. And so what she does is she assembles this content and organizes it for us in a way that we can deliver it step by step in a meaningful way. So extra kudos to her. And you'll see that if you're listening to the podcast, how brilliant she is. But let's go here. Miranda, why is this so important? Let's start real high level on this first.
I love that you always want to start with why. I do too. So thank you for that. I'll share that this whole concept today is going to be just part 1 of a 4-part series through the podcast that our coaches are going to help put together. Because yes, vision. We talk about vision a lot. You and I had a podcast not too long ago around vision. But it's really the most important piece, because without that, when we put anything else into play, how do we know that we're working towards something that we want to be working towards? A lot of the times we end up just showing up and the day happens to us. And so without a very clear vision, we get lost in all of that. So we've put together a 4-part series. I'm really excited for listeners to be able to engage in all 4 pieces that start with really high-level vision and then work into our core purpose and our core values, and how do we differentiate ourselves so that we can work towards that vision. And along each of those pieces, how does it impact our practice? How does it impact our team? How does it impact our culture? How does it then impact our overall life? Because that's what this is all about, is helping you to use your business to create the life that you want. And you have to have a really clear vision in place to be able to start down that path of getting what you want out of your practice and out of your life.
Yeah. And if you've ever built anything, let's just use a house, for example. Let's say you're going to build this dental practice and you're going to build $1 million house. Would you do it without a blueprint or a vision of what it's going to look like? No, you wouldn't, because that would be a horrible investment of time and money, and it probably wouldn't work so well. I'm here to say firsthand that when you have a clear vision And sometimes you don't know these pieces, but we're going to walk you through it. But the clearer it gets, the easier it gets to execute it, enjoy it, add energy to it. And when you wake up or look up, a year from now or 2 years from now, that's what really creates this enjoyment, I think, is you go, look at this. We did this, instead of it letting it happen to you. Don't you think, Miranda?
Yeah, I just pictured showing up. We just built a house this year. So I pictured showing up and having the crew here and saying, I'd like you to build me a house. I think I want it to be 2 stories, and I want to have enough bedrooms that my whole family can sleep in their own room. And this team doesn't know how many people are in, the crew. They don't know how many people are in my family. I've given them no inclination or specifics as to how large or how small. There's no, I say at that point, I'm going to show up, and I have this idea in my mind of what this house is going to look like. I'm going to show up 6 months later, hopefully, as long as it doesn't rain too much. And it's going to be done. And I'm going to go, oh, that's not what I was hoping to get out of this at all. And then without that blueprint, you have some doors, that can't close all the way, and your roof is leaking, right? So you're going to have a house, right? But it might not be the house that you envisioned, and you're going to end up being miserable living in that house for the rest of your life. And you've already made the investment of time and cost. And so the same thing happens in your office. You're investing your time, your energy, and money into your practice every single day, year over year, throughout the lifetime of your business. Don't you want for it to be and turn into, what you really want, what fulfills you and what makes you happy? So I think it's also really important, because when you have a really clear vision, you reduce that. I know you like to use the phrase decision fatigue, which I love. And it takes away that stress and that decision fatigue, because you're able to make strategic decisions based on what you've defined as your vision. When you know where you want to go, when your team is very clear on where we want to go, every choice that you have to make along the way is easier to make. And so you have more energy to give in those areas that you want to be able to dedicate your energy to. Don't you think?
Don't you think? You're using my question on me. I love it. So we have a lot of fun doing these podcasts.
Yeah.
And please hear this. We're not making this stuff up. I mean, what we do is we coach a lot of great practices who are stuck and they're trying to get better. And some of the best ones, I would say absolutely the best ones, have very healthy cultures and very clear visions for what they're building. That's my question to you, if you're listening, is what are you building? And you should be able to describe it so clearly and energetically that people pick up on it right away. One of my favorite things, now, if you're listening to the podcast, this is my open invitation. I invite you to come to Milwaukee and knock on the door any day. You don't even need an invitation. And if I'm free, which I'll make myself free, say, give me a tour. Tell me about this place. I'm like, oh, can I? Because I'll spend 30 minutes describing the why, what we do, why we do it so important, and how this room works and who this person is. And I say that because I hope the same is for you, that if I sent a dental student or a pre-dental student to your office, you would say, oh my gosh, come on in. What's your name? I'm so excited you're here. Let me explain to you how this place works. And at any moment, you could look at the person at the front or one of your team members and go, Miranda, you take it from here. I want you to describe how this area works and how that area works. And that's when you take this, whatever this is for you, to a whole nother level. The fun part is not when you're banging the drum telling everybody what it's about. It's when others are. And they're going, let me show you this. Let me show you that. Don't you think?
Well, and you mentioned, don't you think? You mentioned culture. And that's another big piece of it. Because when your team is aligned around the vision, then your culture starts to thrive as well, because you have this unified goal that everybody's trying to achieve. We have this unity, this greater purpose that we all know we're working towards. When we hear stories in the practice about toxic culture or back chatter and things of that nature, I just say those people don't know where they're going and they don't have enough to keep them busy. Because if you're busy and you're on a mission to make something happen that you believe in, you don't have time for all of that. You're not going to engage in all of that drama. So when the team is aligned around a vision and it's clear, and I say that's why, we have an amazing culture at ACT. It's fabulous. And I think it's because of that vision is in front of us over and over all of the time. And you could put any one of us in a room and there's the elevator pitch. We all know exactly what we're working towards and we're unified around that. So we have this really cohesive, productive work environment because every single day when we show up, we know what we're showing up for and where we're trying to go.
Yeah.
And ultimately, when you have a really positive team culture like that, the patient experience improves as well. So not only is it easier for you as a leader, right? You're reducing that decision fatigue and your culture is going to improve because you create this team alignment and team unity around your vision. Now that folds over into a higher level of satisfaction for your patients through the experience in the practice. Because when your vision is clear and your team is consistently delivering on those practice promises, and it's that word consistent, reliable, positive outcomes and positive experiences, the trust and the loyalty and your reputation as a brand in your community is going to skyrocket. And so while we say vision, that's fluffy. How much time, I work with coaching clients. How much time are we really going to spend on vision? You know what? We're going to really spend some time on vision because otherwise for the next 3 or 4 or 5 years while I'm coaching you, how do I know how to help you get where you want to go?
Yeah.
Right? We're just going to be dealing with the fires that are in front of us, and that's exhausting.
It's very exhausting. And if you're a parent, you know how this works. Somebody's got to hold that torch high. Like, this is what we're doing. This is who we are. This is where we're going. And sometimes it might sound stern, but it's got to turn into a positive message eventually. I want to piggyback on a couple things you said. You used the word busy. And again, the goal of this podcast is to be helpful, so don't take this the wrong way. If you're somebody who runs around and says, I'm busy, that's a focus issue. You should never say, I'm busy. And you should say, look, I get it. Everybody's working hard. So you can say, I'm working hard. But yes, we're very focused on what matters around here. And I know where to spend my time. And that becomes a huge shift for you. You used enhances team alignment. That's my first thing. People always say patients come first. No, they don't. They come second. What's cool about your vision is when you constantly get everybody aligned around the vision, you can start to feel the energy. That's one of my my favorite thing anyone ever says to me is like, your team's amazing. And listen, I'm not some unicorn telling you, I have a perfect team. I'm as crazy and screwed up as anybody. But when you get people doing it for their own reasons and they're explaining and they're, we talk about unreasonable hospitality and all these things that add so much value to other people's lives. That's the stuff that makes you so exciting, but it starts with you adding some vision, some clarity, and getting everybody aligned around it. Now, let me go to the patient thing too, because let me just speak to the person who's listening to this, who spends a majority of their time trying to explain to a team member, I want you to say this. I want you to walk around and shake the patient's hand. And then when you describe me, I want you to introduce me as oh my gosh, doesn't that sound hard? What's really cool is you don't have to do a lot of that. And yes, it's not easy to find great team members. But when you do, they'll go, I got this. You don't need to tell me what to say. Maybe give me a few phrases or whatever, but I got this. They start to believe in you in a way that's for them enjoying how they work.
And I think that the other part that's nice about it is we say a lot that accountable people, want accountability, and the more that you can create the expectation for them of what we do here and why we do it, they're going to be more motivated to make those autonomous decisions in your practice. They don't have to come knock on your door every time they want to move a patient in the schedule. They can think of, okay, what is our vision here? What are our values here? What are we trying to do? Where are we trying to go? How are we supposed to take care of patients? And when they filter that on their own, they can know, where should I put this patient in the schedule? And they don't have to leave stickies all over your desk all day long. It alleviates a lot of the pressure that you have as a leader when your team starts to be more self-guided because they know the expectation. Without the charted course, they're just all swimming in different directions. We're not even all on the same boat, So we have to make sure that the team knows where we're going. And that, part of our job as a leader, although it's hard, I think, for some of us who went into dentistry for the sake of the dentistry itself, is you are going to have to inspire your team on this journey. Like there has to be a level of inspiration that comes from what we're trying to create. Now, you don't have to be Tony Robbins, right? You don't have to be a motivational speaker to inspire your team. I think you just have to show your team that you have a purpose, that we know where we want to go and how we're going to get there. Just put it in front of them in the way in which feels comfortable for you. You don't have to be a cheerleader in that messaging. You just have to be very clear about what it is and consistently sharing that message so that it's in the forefront at all times of where we're going and what we're doing.
Oh my gosh. Now, trust me, if you're listening to this podcast, we're going to walk you through the framework, but I'm going to add a few things before we get started. And I just love what you said. You don't need to be a Tony Robbins. Like, let's just go to sports. I don't care for the coaches that are screaming and hollering and afterwards in the press conference and they're like, like, I like the people who are calm, consistent. So if you're a dentist, you're like, I'm not very dynamic. That is awesome. Just be consistent. Like I'm going to totally trash the University of Minnesota. And I went there and I actually played football. I didn't play, but I was on the team. But PJ Fleck is a little bit too much for me. He's like, I'm like, quiet, like drink some decaf. Seriously, like you talk too much. Like put more results on the field and just be quiet. Like be a quiet, confident leader. And please, Minnesota fans, don't get mad. But like you don't need to go crazy. So the point is this, be really consistent, be calm, and that will in itself inspire people. One more thing about vision is that the more you do the vision, and you stick to it, the less distracted you are. The less you go to a course and you go, man, I got to move in this direction and I got to shift and I got to go that direction. You're like, no, I know who we are. I know what we're building. I know myself. And it gives it so much power because there's so many flashy, shiny objects everywhere. And it's easy to be distracted. I'm the most distractible human being that's ever lived on this planet, squirrel. So when you have a really tight vision, you can stay consistent. One last thing, and then we'll break this down. The signature of mediocrity is chronic inconsistency, and that is who I was for the first 20 years of my career. I wish I would have known that. The more consistent and clear you are on your vision, the more power and energy it adds to everybody's lives. So, where do we go from here, Miranda?
Let's dig in.
Yes.
So we have a tool that's the 6 critical questions that help you to think through your vision. And it starts with one very simple question, which is, why do we exist? And now I'll say one more thing before we really dig in. We talked a little bit on the last podcast that you and I did around concepts of vision that you really need space to think through these. Don't try to do this, sitting down at your desk in between patients. Okay, I'm going to knock the first question out. Okay, I'm going to go do this crown. I'm going to come back and answer the next question. Really carve some time to be able to think through these questions in a way that allows you to explore opportunity and really think and touch base with where your heart says you want to go. So, number 1, why do we exist? As the dentist, you have to know and be passionate about the reason this practice exists. Why do you get up in the morning? Why did you decide to be a dentist to begin with? We can start there. And then why do I want to have my own practice? And why do I wake up every day and show up at this practice? Why did I build this team? And get that on paper. Just get a little messy with it and brainstorm some of these answers around why I get up in the morning and do this every single day. And then you want to just keep asking yourself why. And we're going to dig a little bit more into this concept on our part 2. So the next podcast in Sharpening Your Vision will be solely focused on your core purpose. But we want to really dig into what is the core reason that I show up every day. Because Kirk, you and I say, I want doctors to pull into the parking lot and be eager to hop out of the car and run up the steps to the front door and be able to walk through the door and be really happy and say good morning to everyone. And now, mind you, I know there's traffic and maybe, something, your dog tore something up before you were leaving the house. You're not going to be like, super happy all the time. It's not all rainbows and sunshine, but you see what I'm saying? I don't want you dreading it. I don't want you sitting on your couch on Sunday afternoon, dreading going to work on Monday. I don't want you to pull into the parking lot every day that you're going to work and struggle to get out of the car. So if you have a deeper seated purpose for knowing what we do here, that is going to be the first step into leaning into what is this vision and how do I want to get more of this into my practice life. And so that line of questioning is going to get you right down to the core purpose of what we do.
Yeah. And so I know some of you listening to this might struggle, but I'll pretend to be you for a second. Like maybe you went into dentistry because it looked like a great profession and you could choose your hours, you could choose how to take care of people. It was the freedom of choice and how to express yourself professionally. Period, exclamation point. Think about that. The more you introduce maybe PPOs, evenings, Saturdays, other things that are beyond your control, the more it probably steals from that joy, the sweet nectar that makes you enjoy going to work. I know it would be for me. Number two, maybe you thought you could have a life. You could go, I think I could make a good income or a great income and actually have a reasonable life where I could be home at 5. And I'll tell you, a lot of what I always wanted to be a dad, like a great husband and a great dad. Who cares about whatever I was going to do? A lot of this was inspired by my dad, but like that was my why. And how that relates to our work is really easy because it fits right into core purpose. And the cool thing is when you believe it, you could put the flag in the ground and go, no, get out of here. It's 5:00. You need to get home. I asked Andy today, do you have a softball game? Because I want to have a meeting, but you should be at the softball game. Instead, he's like, no, season's over. I'm like, okay, well, if you want to. But the cool thing is you can put the flag in the ground and you can add energy to the whole why behind it. And so I can't say enough about what you said, Miranda, before. We spend 30% of our lives at work. And the coolest thing, I'm going to say this over and over again, if you ever listen to the podcast, this is the greatest profession ever because you can choose your hours, you can choose your income, you can choose how to practice. No one chooses it for you. You just have to wake up and go, I choose this. You spend 30% of your life at work. And when you can pull in your parking spot, after a drive, you go, you know, it's not perfect, but I actually enjoy how I do it. You can actually play that song by Russell Dickerson. Have you ever heard it? It's a good day to have a great day.
Oh,
that's one of my favorite songs. Hey, listener, just get that song on Spotify. Go actually get out of this podcast. Go listen to that song and then come back. It's a good day to have a great day. Listen to it over.
We need to make a Better Practice, Better Life playlist.
We should. Oh my gosh, that's a good. So I know I'm totally hijacking this, but I'm telling you guys, this is the stuff that matters. It's the stuff that people pick up on. It's the power behind it. So that's number one. Why do we exist? Why do I do this? The why. When the why gets clear, the how gets easy.
Kirk, I say being helpful is my favorite thing to be. I just love, nothing feels better for me as my individual self than when I know I've been helpful at dinner with my family when we sit down for dinner. And now sometimes my kids even initiate it, which is like, oh, I've built the tradition. I love it. Is we ask, what did you do kind or helpful today? That's the first question we ask each other. And we all go around the table and we say what we did. And it can be as simple as I helped someone, log into their computer at school, or it can be as major as helping a friend through a really challenging time. So, what did you do that was kind or helpful today? And so for me, again, when you talk about decision fatigue, if I'm met with a challenge of, am I going to fit this into my day? Or even like the choice to come be a part of ACT. You just mentioned, I just had my 2-year anniversary. I love the purpose that we have here, and that the purpose of what we do in helping people fits perfectly with what I love most and what my core purpose is, which is I love to feel helpful. It's my most favorite thing to be. And so when you can align those things and keep that at the front, it's so much easier to stay engaged. Yeah. Well, first of all, you mentioned perfect. And before we go to number 2, if you're expecting your practice to be perfect ever, you're going to be sadly disappointed
right.
for the rest of your life. Nothing's perfect and no one is perfect. But if we can make it feel good because we're hitting that core of what makes us feel good and what we're trying to create and fulfill, no amount of perfect's going to matter because it just feels good to show up every day and be able to do what we love.
Yeah.
So...
Amen, sister. One more thing, because Miranda and the rest of these amazing coaches made us sit through some incredible education a few weeks ago. And they had somebody who was an expert on burnout and just what's going on in the world. And they said one of the major components to reduce burnout, it's called meaningful work. And so I think your challenge as a dentist is to find this thing called work, make it meaningful not only for you, but everybody else that experiences the practice, and it's powerful. Now, I have a story for you, Miranda. You haven't even heard this one, but this is the power of vision. So I was interviewing one of your clients, Dr. Christopher Mazzola, and you haven't even heard the story, but on Friday, you guys should go back and listen to the podcast. Chris talked about a patient in Traverse City, Michigan, who was trying to find their hygienist. Their hygienist had left the practice that they had been going to. So they assumed that this hygienist that they loved had gone to Chris's practice. They call the office, and the team member at the front is listening to this, and unfortunately, we do not have that hygienist. She does not work in our office. I know you thought she did. She doesn't. The team member at the front spent the next whatever hour calling around Traverse City to find the hygienist, and she found her. She called the patient back and said, I found where your hygienist is at. Let's get you over there. That's crazy. Nobody does that in dentistry. Most dentists would go, why did you send a patient to another practice? And Chris was so proud of what his team member had done beyond what he told them. I love that.
That's a really cool story.
Isn't that cool? Like,
I haven't heard that one yet. I have to ask him about that one.
And the patient was like, nobody does that. Who does that?
And the patient's going to remember them forever. So if they get, and what if they get to that other practice and the hygienist is awesome, but the practice isn't? That patient's going to say, oh, well, those people were so helpful.
I love it. We're going to do a Paul Harvey, the rest of the story, and give you guys what happened. So, gosh, I'm sorry.
You just dated us when you just said Paul Harvey.
I know. I'm going to do that a lot because I grew up on that. Like the rest of the story, you got to say Paul Harvey. You have to.
Absolutely.
My kids have no idea who Paul Harvey is. But okay. What's step number 2 of this, Miranda?
As we squirrel. Step number 2 is how do we behave? So when we have a clear idea of where we want to go and we know our core purpose, now we say, how do we behave on a regular basis? What are the actions? What are the behaviors? What are the characteristics that we value here? What behaviors have my favorite team members exhibited in the past? The people that, man, I wish I could have cloned so-and-so. Like, what was it about that person? What behaviors or characteristics made them stand out? What about those challenging team members? What did those team members do? Or what were their behaviors or characteristics? Because I'd probably like the opposite of that in terms of behaviors and values moving forward. I often say, so I just mentioned to you that being helpful is my favorite thing to be. And that's what I would say is my core purpose as an individual. And we have core values in our house too. Family first. Yeah. Right? Like I want to know that the people in my family, that we're putting each other first, right? I have 3 kids, and let's be honest, you have several kids as well. They don't always think to put each other or the family first, but they're more likely to on a regular basis when we're saying that out loud, and that's showing up through my actions and through my husband's actions and through their grandparents' actions. So when we look at behaviors, actions, characteristics in our practice that we want to see show up more and more, those start to develop into the values or the behaviors that we respect and want most. And so we start looking at this internal line of questioning, asking yourself first about those team members that were amazing. Man, I wish I could clone so-and-so. Well, why? Like, what was it about that person that was so awesome? And then what was it about the ones that you had to let go or maybe always caused a fuss? What was it about them? Because we want to make sure that we're not inviting more of that into the practice. And start to think about what are then these common traits or characteristics, because that's how we start to develop a set of core values in the practice that help to guide our behavior and guide the expectations for our team's behavior.
Yeah. Now, if you were younger, like if I went back in a time machine, I would have just skipped over this portion and go, okay, great, get to the next one. Because my vision for how people behaved, this is how I hired people when ACT started. Would I want to have a beer with them? Because everybody used that like there's a lot of people you would like to have a beer with, but you would never work with them. Okay. You just wouldn't. And so I would say you have to evolve that. Now, a couple more things. Core values are the most important thing you will ever do other than figuring out your why. That's why these are in order, is because the core values are non-negotiable behaviors. Now, there's a challenge with core values. I see a lot of them. People go, well, it's integrity, it's excellence. Those are not core values. Those are beautiful, pretty words that nobody knows how to behave. Core values are verbs. They're actions that you can say, there it is. All-in attitude is my favorite. I've seen Barrett take out the trash here many times. Like, all-in attitude means I'm all in. I'll help with that. No one says, that's not my job. Do you like my...
That's the worst phrase in the office. That's not my job.
That's not my job.
I'm really excited, too, because I think we haven't spent as much time. We love core values, and I feel like we haven't talked about them much on the podcast lately. So... Yeah. The part 3 of Sharpen Your Vision is going to be all on core values. So if you stick with us through this whole series, we're going to get deeper and deeper into each of these pieces because Kirk, I think that you have a 172 slide deck on examples of your favorite core values.
785 slides. No, and here's why. Here's the so that. When you get everybody aligned on how to behave, all of the crazy crap that you've ever dealt with goes away. It's crazy stuff repellent. A lot of why you don't go to work is behaviors. You can see somebody snickering. You can see somebody rolling their eyes. You can see somebody left early and didn't care. You can see people checking out emotionally, and it drives you crazy. You, my friend, the listeners, you have to fix that. And so you got to determine, how do we behave? Even if you have to take a step back in order to take 4 forward. So I don't want to belabor this because I do believe in this and I've watched it work firsthand. And I will tell you, as the person who has to lead this and set the tone from the top, the more you lean into it, the happier you are every day. So what's step number 3? Where do we go after that?
After that, we want to look at what do we do? So we've already thought about why do we do it and how do we act here. Now we want to say, so what do we do here? What do we do here that differentiates us from all other dentists? What do we do well? What do we not do well? And maybe we should stop doing, or we need to create an opportunity to develop around. Are there things that we're not doing yet, but it's a big part of our vision and what we'd like to be able to bring into the practice? So what do we do? And really thinking through this line around what differentiates us. And when we go down this internal line of questioning, again, having some time set aside to really think through these strategies, we're going to start to develop our differentiation strategy. So we're going to start to develop an actual plan for how can we recognize what we do here that's unique, that offers something different to our community, and then how can we use that day to day in our engagement, in our marketing, in the way that we unite and inspire our team. Differentiation basically just means, again, there's dentists on every corner. What is it about our practice and about us that's going to be unique or different or special, that's going to set us apart? I often use examples. So if you've heard me say this before on the podcast, my husband is a realtor, and it makes me think about, gosh, when you're showing someone 5 houses in the same general neighborhood in the same school zone, how do you, after a while, they all start to look alike. But there was the one house that had a bright yellow front door, and they had a walk-in closet that they had added on to the master bedroom. Everything else was kind of the same, but you go back to, at the end of the day, you're sitting there with your spouse over dinner, you're talking about the houses you saw. They're all on the same block. They're all around the same price point, but there's that one with the yellow door that had that walk-in closet. And so how do you reflect on your practice and say, what do we do here that's that yellow door, that thing that leaves a lasting impact? That story you just told about Chris, that's super unique to their practice, to Dr. Mazzola. The fact that they have an environment of wanting to be helpful to their community. They're a very community-based practice. Again, being their coach, I am aware of that. So it doesn't surprise me that they did something above and beyond to help someone within their community, because that's part of what they do. And so, differentiation.
And they swim in abundance. They have 4,500 active patients, and they're out of network in a small town. I'm telling you, when you put your flag in the ground and say, we're going to go in this direction, you always have enough people to take care of. One more thing I want to add about what do we do. Your natural inclination is to go into restore, implants, we do CBCT. Stay away from technology and procedures. It's got to be bigger than that. What really makes what you do so different? And I say this in almost I'd say that probably every other day in every podcast if I could. There are people that fix teeth and there are people that change lives. They are not the same business. One dental practice is in a different business than the person who fixes teeth. Now, if you fix teeth, don't feel bad about that. That's an amazing business. There's a great market for people that fix teeth. And so you just have to decide what market are you in. And for us, again, a lot of this goes back to core purpose. There's two boxes that have to be checked: better practice, better life. I feel like we can improve profitability better than anybody in the planet. We can help you scale and grow into an amazing, healthy practice that you could if you wanted to sell. That's not really what we do. We really help people get where they want to go. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't check both boxes, we're not doing it. I'm not going to ever let anybody work on a Saturday if I can't, because that's not checking the box. And people are always like, well, some people have to work on a Saturday. Like, what's your goal here? If your goal is to grow and scale and make money and sell it and get a sailboat after that, just call that out. You probably won't want to listen to the rest of this podcast, but at least be honest with yourself and what you're building. You're like, I don't really like my team. I just want to make enough money and sell and get the heck out of here. Don't lie to yourself. But the cool thing, I'm guessing, by a lot of people listening to this is like you care. You care about the work, and it shows up as a leader. People will follow you. So what do? It's bigger than the procedure. So where do we go after that?
So once we know why we do what we do and how we act here and what it is that we do that is unique or different that sets us apart from, the guy down the street or the gal down the street, the next question we need to ask ourselves is, how will we succeed? What would success look like for me and for the practice? So asking yourself questions like, what do I want more of? And really stop and think about the things that you want more of. And you want to think about this around the practice itself, maybe the procedures that you're performing. You want to think about this on the financial side. You want to think about your team. You want to think about your patients. When we talked about differentiation just a moment ago with ACT, we say that our differentiation is, well, one, we always want to be the most helpful coaching team, which, that fills my bucket. But two, we want to help everyone to be more aligned, to be smarter, and to be healthier. And so thinking about those three pieces, how will we succeed? What do we want more of in terms of alignment in our practice? What do we want more of around the smart piece, the financial piece, the data? Maybe I just want to understand data. I get these reports from my CPA. I get this report from my coach, and I don't even really know what some of these metrics mean. Or, I feel like I have a pretty good handle on data, but I don't know how to help my team understand data, and I want them to be more a part of it. Maybe that's what you want more of. So you have to stop and ask yourself, what do I want more of? And also, what do I want less of? Because there's things in your practice that are driving you crazy. There's things in your practice that are frustrating you, that are draining you, and or even draining your bank account possibly. And so what do we want less of? And this internal line of questioning, stopping and reflecting on this, is going to help you to define your successful outcomes. Yeah. And when we look at our annual successful outcomes from these, we can actually build out tangible goals and strategies to move into, like, how do we now get moving towards this vision? We're moving down closer to the ground floor of how do we actually get where we want to go when we start asking ourselves these questions of how will we succeed.
Yeah. And that evolves too as you mature and learn more. So again, I'll go back to my 30-year-old self. How will I succeed? It usually started with retrofitting how much I wanted to make. And so how am I going to build that in order to be able to support that? Because I wanted to be a dad and a husband, and I get that. And then as it starts to work, you realize you have to think better. That's why you get a great coach like Miranda who challenges you all the time. And ultimately, if your game is, and I'll give you mine, like, At the end of the day, how we're going to succeed, our game plan is to build a healthy business. I think if you think about it the long term, while I'm not going to work for 100 years, I'm thinking about, I'm going to build this thing for 100 years. I got that from Gary Vee. He said, build your company like you're going to build it for 100 years, because in doing so, you're going to do it the right way. You're going to spend your time building things that work, that multiply in a very healthy way. And it doesn't have to be locations, but it can be relationships, it can be leaders and all that kind of stuff. So that's one thing to think about, is how you will succeed. It's like, what are you building and how are you going to do it? Here at Act Dental, the most important time I spend, period, exclamation point, is on alignment time with our leaders. Now, it supports my vision. And this is why I want to share this with you guys. Is like, my vision is I don't want to become the most dynamic human being in the world. I actually just want to grow other leaders that grow other leaders. And in order to do that, how I'm going to succeed is I have to spend my time growing, aligning, meeting with leaders who say, I got this. Like, you go do something else. And so that's one piece of it. And you do need an operating system. If you've been listening, we're big fans of the Traction Operating System by Gino Wickman. It's a great book to read. I highly encourage you. I still have my original copy in my bag. And it works. It works. We were just commenting this Monday on our Traction meeting, which is our leadership meeting. By sticking to it and religiously following, you feel like you're putting out fires that aren't even really fires. They're like proactively things. And we actually finished our meeting. We're like, We've been following it, and it takes a while. You get to a point, you're like, wow, these meetings are good. And you're proactively solving problems. You're mitigating conflict. You trust each other more. And the byproduct of it is the financials go way beyond anything you ever even dreamed. Am I on the right track here?
Oh, you're totally on the right track. And that's the whole point. Is we talked at the very top of this around, it's either happening to you or you're leading your practice where you want it to go. And so you have to align not only with yourself and what you want, but you also have to align with your team, and you have to be consistent. So there's certain words that keep popping up in this podcast. Consistency is definitely one of them. If we miss a Monday leadership meeting internally, we all feel a little behind. We all feel a little disconnected with one another. It's almost like, what? Wait, where are we going? Where were we going? It's just been 1 week. It shouldn't be that hard to remember. But you have to keep it in front of yourself and in front of your team consistently, which kind of feeds into like the next step of number 5, which is like, now that we've focused on these bigger picture things and we're getting closer to that ground floor, the next question you want to ask yourself is, what is most important right now? And so if you start with what feels most important right now, it's going to be some nonsense, without a doubt. If you show up every single day and say, what feels like the thing I should be doing right now? It's some little fire. It's some little piece of nonsense in your practice. So if you start at the top and work yourself down to what is most important right now, it's easy to remember that right now in this quarter, this week of this quarter, we have a rallying cry towards what? And if we have worked on a greater vision and broken it all the way down into an annual goal, and now we can go quarterly, if I'm going to get that done by the end of this year, each quarter we have to make some progress. And we've said this is the most important thing or things that we work on this year. This is the most important thing or things that we work on this quarter. Now, every single week of this quarter, I know I have to stay focused on, and the team has to stay focused on what's most important right now in order to hit that goal that we set for ourselves. And when we say goal, I think a lot of people automatically lean towards like a number on a bullseye, right? Like our goal is $10,000. That's not what I mean. That's a target. Right? I want you to strive towards targets, financial targets, but goals are bigger and they're more conceptual, that help us to get more of those things that we want and less of the things that we don't. And so what is most important right now? And once we know, and as the leader, we've put that in front of our team over and over week at a weekly team meeting. Remember, these are our priorities this quarter. This is why we're doing this, because it feeds into this greater goal that we set for the year. It's a rallying cry that we all can stay united around. And when we start to get off track, it's easy to say, okay, but wait, what's most important right now? Yeah. And that happens a lot as a coach. We get on a call, every few weeks, every couple of weeks with our coaching clients, we'll get on a call and we're talking about this and we're talking about that. And we'll say, wait. I want to help you with these challenges. That's part of what I want to do. Like I said, I love being helpful. I want to help you with that. Let's write down these issues that you're having in the practice right now. I also want to make sure we have plenty of time to focus on what's most important right now. And what you shared with us is most important right now because it's so easy. It's so easy to let the day-to-day take over and blind you to what you had decided is where we're trying to go together.
You are speaking my jam. So, all right, if you're listening to this podcast, write this down. The problem with the world is that we don't give our best energy to the things that matter most. So if you feel overwhelmed, you feel stressed, or if you're using the word busy, that's terrible. You should say, I'm working hard, but I'm extremely focused. Now, I'm saying that to you because I lived in that world. I lived in this overwhelm of like everything was important. So I brought whatever was on my brain to the ACT Dental meetings on Mondays, and I thought I was doing good stuff, but I was blowing it up. And when you get really clear about what's important now, and I'm a big fan of the 90-day world, which is 13 weeks, it's 3 months, and it's part of our annual plan that feeds into our 3-year plan. That's what Miranda's talking about. You would all agree. You don't need to finish or fix 92 things. You got to figure out what are the 3 most important things we need to accomplish as a team and stay hyper-focused on it. Here's what's cool to your entire team. If you have 19 people like we do, or even 400 people, everybody in the company should go, we're working on 3 things this quarter that move the needle for us. It keeps everyone focused, and it also gives you a sense of accomplishment. I lived in a world of like, I tried so many things, but none of it ever got done, and that's hard. Live in the 90-day world. Human beings can only stay focused for 90 days, and that's it. Now, one more thing I want to piggyback on. You said goals and targets. That is so true. I always thought goals were numbers, like money and all that kind of stuff. That's a target. I can't say that enough. A goal is a sustainable, repeatable asset. Like, we're going to develop an amazing perio program to support our restorative philosophy. And for the next 13 weeks, 90 days, we're going to build that. Now you have an asset that is repeatable. It continues to grow and add value to the organization quarter over quarter, year over year, and it'll get better as that's a goal that's
I think it's important to say that again, and I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to say it a different way. I love that example that you just gave. If you want, for big generalization, you want more profit and you want more autonomy amongst your hygiene team. You don't have to be, driving those diagnoses quite as much. You'd like to see them digging in a little bit more. Great. So that's successful outcomes. Our goal for this year around that successful outcome might be that by the end of this year, we want to have a robust periodontal protocol that supports our overall philosophy and restorative program. Great. Your targets then is where the data comes in, right? Your targets are going to be, what's our periodontal diagnostic percentage? What's our patient acceptance of periodontal procedures recommended? What's our perio visit percentage of the number of hygiene visits and patients that come in? What number or what percentage of those are perio patients versus prophy or preventative appointments? And then we can measure the targets against, did we achieve this goal and is it being successful? These targets will tell us that. So, that was such a good example. And I know I just squirreled a little bit, but like I had to dig into just putting it, again, another frame of reference so people listening can understand how that all comes together.
You're good. You are good. Like, that was beautiful. This is the value of working with amazing people, because that's a brilliant example of how you would do it in your own practice. And obviously Miranda does this. This is one of her roles here, is helping dentists figure this out. But if you're a listener to the podcast, you can see now you're building something that you can repeat over and over again. One more benefit of this is, let's say you're 32. And the lights go on for you and you're listening to this podcast, you're like, oh, dude, I can totally see how I can practice for 3 more decades. You're just going to rinse and repeat every quarter. You're going to rally. You're going to have a rally cry around 3 different initiatives, and you're going to break them down just like how Miranda said. You're going to add some value, and you'll see it works. And then once you achieve them, the target, the goal, the outcome, your team looks at you and says, well, I think we could do better. And you go, what? What are you talking about? It creates this collective confidence that you as a leader have said what you want to do, and we've helped you do it, and we're all part of the solution. And I don't want to sound like kumbaya doing all this, but like these are the elements, the moments that you love like your work so much that you're, I don't know. I scream about this stuff all the time, and people are like, "Stop! Do you understand like how difficult my company is?" And I get it, like, but this is your chance. This is your chance to make work different and make it meaningful. I love this stuff.
Well, and I would say that anybody who says that, yeah, we do, because guess what? You're not alone.
You're not.
We hear exactly that all the time. That's why we have people that come to us because they have an amazing practice that they just want to make more amazing, and we have people that come to us and they're just a little lost, and they're like, I'm hearing everything that you're saying, and I have no idea how to get there. I have no idea how to make it happen. So You're not alone.
Let me piggyback on something you said. We love this stuff so much. I don't ever care if you become a client ever. I don't care if we ever meet. I do care. I would love to meet. But I hope this information is so helpful that I did my job, she did her job, and you go, I listened to one podcast, some guy, the girl that he had on the podcast, she was really smart, but like he wasn't. Like it made my life better type of a thing. I hope you love what you do so much that you would want to add that kind of energy to it. So again, I love this stuff, so bear with us. What's number 6?
We love it so much, we can't stop talking about it and we get off track. Right. Number 6 is who must do what. So you can't reach your vision alone. You need to have your team to support you. I've seen this happen too. The doctor's super clear on what they want and where they want to go. And they have core values and they have a core purpose and they've done all the work on the back end, but they either haven't shared it with their team or they're not sure how to get the team rallied around it. So you can't reach your vision alone. You're not going to be able to achieve the outcomes that you're hoping for without everyone that's a part of your practice being on board. The how is really important. Right. So getting really clear on how we're going to do this, how we're going to behave, and what are our quarterly priorities going to be, what's the goal for this year. But the who, and I know we talked last year about the book, I think it's called It's the Who, Not How, or you probably know. But it's about who is going to help you on this journey, not just how are we going to get it done. And you have to discuss what's needed from your team, what's needed, get really clear around the accountabilities, the functions, the tasks, the roles of the people on your team and how they're going to help you get where you want to go with your vision. And they're not going to do it just because they want to help you get where you want to go with their vision. Like you have to this is where that inspiration comes in. If you respect your team and you are an encouraging, transparent, clear leader who is kind and direct, they're going to want to do it with you and for you as a leader.
Yeah.
It's about how you lead.
You're getting me in trouble here probably with Dan Sullivan, but the name of the book is Who Not How, the formula to achieve bigger goals through accelerating teamwork. And Dan, if you're listening, Dan's a friend of mine. I actually went through his coaching program. It's a terrible book, so I'm sure he wouldn't mind me saying that. But the title says it all. You don't need to read the book. You can just read the cover of the book. The book is this: don't figure out how. Just figure out who. We spend a lot of time in the how. The how is important. You're going to find as you build a great team, some people are going to be really good at the how. So you just need a who. I mean, Miranda's a great example of that. I don't need to worry about the how. I got the who. And so really great leaders focus on who before how. And yes, both of them are important. And so breaking that down even further, if you live in the 90-day world, 13 weeks, you come up with these priorities. You can designate priority owners or champions, whatever you call them. They don't have to do all the work, but they're responsible for leading it to the finish line. And sometimes it's just organizing the work, and you need someone to say, I will get this to the finish line. I'll be responsible for it, but they can delegate the work and make it happen, right?
Well, and when your team member is invested in creating the systems, creating the how, they're going to own it with a greater sense of purpose. So I think about something like a practice is behind on AR, right? If you have a ton of money owed to you and maybe you lost your office manager and you had a few months in between, and so you finally got someone on board and you're going to write a system so that the new office manager knows how to collect money and how to reclaim that unclaimed AR. Well, they're just going to come in and work your system. There's going to be a completely different buy-in from that person than if you work with that person or create a space for that person to develop a system for themselves, because maybe they've been doing this for 20 years and they might know how to do it really, really well. Give them that space. And so when the team and the who gets to be a part of how they develop how they're going to do that, they're going to have a little bit more ownership of it than if you just tell people, do this. You have to be open. You have to be open to hearing other people's perspectives, other people's nuances. And when you have that autonomy amongst your team and you work together with your team, that's when it starts to flourish. And you don't feel like you have to have your hands in every single thing. Trust but verify. You should always know what's going on. But you don't have to do everything when you have the right who in the right seat. So that feeds into our right people, right seat. But
yeah. Amen, sister. You can go home and you could say to yourself on the drive home, files close. I'm not thinking about it. I'm thinking about what's going to happen next at home. So, Miranda, this is so awesome. And again, thank you, listener, for listening to this. I love this stuff. This is like some of my favorite stuff. Give us some final takeaways.
Final takeaways, I'd say your vision as a dental practice owner, it has to be crystal clear to your team. And in order for it to be crystal clear for your team, it has to be crystal clear to you. You have to stop and do the work to really, really get clear on where you want the practice to go and how you want that practice to feed into your life. And when you work through these questions and you work through these steps, it will become clear. And then once it is, you have to over communicate it to your team. We say a lot, when you're a leader, you're the CRO, you're the chief repeating officer. And that's the truth. The more you put the vision in front of your team, the more aligned your team will become. When we meet quarterly as a team, the ACT team, we have a physical binder now, because we love paper, a physical binder where we as a team can see, here's our vision, here's our purpose, here's our values. This is last quarter's priorities. This is next quarter's priorities. This is where we're going and why. It's right in front of everyone all of the time. And then week over week, when we're committed to meeting as a team and in this rhythm, it's right there. It's right in front of us. So we always are clear on where are we going and what's most important right now.
Yeah.
So we're going to work through some of these concepts that are really important and a little more complicated and deeper strategy over the next few podcasts with our coaches. Again, this is part 1, but there'll be parts 2, 3, and 4 headed your way. So if you found this interesting and you're like, yeah, but how do I turn core values into verbs? Like, we're going to help you. We're going to help you. See how helpful we are?
I love it.
Hey, being helpful.
Hey, you're being extra helpful today, Miranda. How cool is that? So, amen. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. I just want to piggyback on one thing, the over communicating. A lot of people are shy to do it. I was shy to do it. I'm like, I've already said this. Now, I'm the first person to screw things up at ACT Dental. I'm like, when did we agree to that? Like, what are we doing? I don't remember what was said yesterday. And so creating a culture, you do it at home. If you have kids, you repeat it over and over and over for the benefit of everybody involved. You have to get okay. And what's really cool is when you're repeating the good stuff, people actually enjoy it. They look forward to it. They get used to it. When you're repeating the bad stuff, like, did anyone take out the trash? Why didn't we do this? They remember that too. So what's the narrative in your practice? Make sure that if I stopped one of your team members and said, what's the narrative in your practice? They would say, gosh, I work for an amazing dentist, but an even better human being. And you know what she says all the time, every day, almost to every single patient? I would go, what? And I would be so excited to share it on the podcast. So that's your challenge. Now, we do have a handout for this. It's the 6 critical questions. If you want a copy of it, it's a great outline. You can email me, Kirk@actdental.com, or Gina, Gina, at actdental.com. We'll send you a copy of it. We just want to be helpful. Use it, print it out, give it to your team members so that you aren't making this stuff up or they think you're making this stuff. Say, I listen to a podcast. Hey, can we just use this handout? I promise you, it'll work. So it's good stuff. Anything else, Miranda?
Oh, this is awesome. Thank you so much.
And you guys don't know this, but at the beginning of the podcast, I'm like, Miranda, do you have a hard stop? Because this one could go really long. And she's like, no, gosh. So
I mean, that's also just our MO, you and I. We tend to run a little long because we love it so much.
I do. I just know how important it is, and it's way beyond work. The cool part about it is when you see it transform somebody's lives or one of their kids' lives, or even a team member who says, look, I just want to thank you. Like, we worked with you guys. We changed our hours. I'm a single mom. I get to, take my kid places. I just love going to work now. That's the fun stuff. And we hope the same is true for you. Following the vision and making it happen, it will absolutely be true. So, Miranda, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. My pleasure. My pleasure. Hey, all right. So stick around while we say goodbye to everybody else. But thank you guys for listening to the podcast. I don't know how this is working. I'm just having a blast doing it. We're going to keep bringing it. As mentioned, as Miranda already mentioned, you're going to see we're going to go into the details of how all of this works with our coaches. So please listen up to the subsequent podcast, and you'll absolutely enjoy that. If you have challenges, please reach out to us. We're so happy to help you because we're helpful people, right? I'm going to repeat that one over and over again. So, and until we see you guys next time, or you hear from us next time, keep watching or keep listening to the Best Practices Show. You guys enjoy your day.